Welcome to the Ignite You podcast.
We're two bros journey into all things spirituality and human transformation.
Let's get it. Cheers, brother.
Cheers to this.
What's this?
This moment, this cacao, this breath, this podcast.
You. That wasn't this.
This you.
This you.
This me.
This you.
Yeah, this is me.
Yeah. This is you.
Well, this me. These are good, strong, huh?
They are strong.
I made them today.
So technically,
It's a matcha cow.
hey, first one we've ever had.
Well, I've made them before.
Sometimes.
They're a bit stronger, aren't they?
Yeah,
There we go.
they are. But that's just because
It's been decided.
I have a morning cacao. Ryan waits until the podcast episode to have his cacao.
Yeah.
I like to double down.
Yes, you probably notice my energy increase incrementally throughout the podcast episodes because I'm getting cranked. When
On
Cam
cappuccinos.
Almost on matcha cows. Cam comes pre-cranked from early in the morning, but it probably
I
fizzles
stay
out.
cranked. Well, our whole motto is stay lit, so I stay lit on cacao all day.
Slit. So for you, how long does a cacao high last? Or is it more incremental than like a coffee kick?
Yeah, that's why I love cacao so much. With matcha, of course. I find I don't burn out. Like I don't ever hit a wall. If I have a coffee though, I go 0 to 60 real quick.
But the coffee you're doing just coffee. You're not like adding fats and doing other things with it. Not
You're
doing, like,
right. It's a
bulletproof coffee.
It's a latte, and I only have it once a week on Cookie Day.
Cookie
with
Day,
my
Saturdays.
partners. You know,
If your question today was when is Cookie Day, the answer is
Saturday.
first question answered.
First question answered. But that's the only day I have it, and when I have it, it's like everything turns on. I get really excited, and I'm like, I need a nap. It's just it doesn't feel good. But when I have a cacao or a matcha, it's a much more stable, slow burn of activation. Unless I've had 3 and we're recording like 3 podcasts in a day, then it becomes I start sweating, start getting kind of anxious, sometimes cry.
It's emotional.
It's a heart opener.
It is, and we're doing lots of things with it too. It's not just pure cacao or pure caffeine. We're adding fats in, and matcha also, but cacao has fats with it. How we use it, that raw
does.
cacao bar.
Yeah. This ain't that powdered stuff. This is a brick.
It's a brick.
Still got that fat.
It's got fats in it. Then we add coconut cream to it and
Yes.
ghee.
And ghee.
So I would say that also helps the rise of caffeine to be slower and then the drop to be slower and not just a fucking up and down crash. So bulletproof coffee, though, you don't with, which is interesting.
Not really.
Okay.
No, I do like it. It definitely helps. Like at Love Burger here, they've got a good one. That's it's an adaptogenic coffee. It's good. It's got bulletproof, like
Lion's mane?
MCT, lion's mane,
Yes.
a whole bunch of stuff in it. And I actually, now that you say that, I find that if I do drink that one, I don't really crash.
That's the key.
That is the key.
Add fats to all your beverages. And you
All
won't
right,
crash.
David Asprey, you
Just
did
put it in your Coca-Cola.
No, that won't work.
Don't drink Coca-Cola.
Nope.
Okay.
Podcast over.
That's it.
That's it. Health tip of the day.
Don't drink Coke. Don't do Coke at all. None of them.
No, none of them are good.
Do none
Did you
of
know there used to be cocaine in Coca-Cola? Or is that an old wives' tale?
I know that I have been told that,
But I don't actually know that
I
it's-
wasn't there. So
I feel like I researched it one time, but I also don't know if that's me thinking I researched it because that sounds like something I would research. Well, it happened.
Did.
I have a lisp sometimes. But I actually don't know. But I think I did. And I think that I am being very unconvincing right now.
Yeah, and today the Q&A, this isn't the energy we want to bring into it, right?
No, it's like, yeah, this question's great. I don't really know the answer to it.
I think I googled
But
it.
I think it might probably sound like something like this.
Yeah, so uncertainty for a Q&A is not
All right,
ideal.
all right. Give me a second.
Find certainty. What does it feel like in your body? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What color is it?
That's what it sounds like.
What color is it?
What color is it? It's blue.
Okay, where does it live?
In my loins.
Wow. Okay, he's honest. I can feel it. Okay.
Here we go. Get the phone out.
We should go to Q&A probably.
All right, so today we're going to answer some of your questions. And as always, we like to express how ridiculous we are with this stuff. The camera died before on the last episode, and we really wanted to do these without rehearsing, but too bad we got a chance to rehearse because we were recording the whole episode, and 7 minutes in, I got some sort of weird message from a Costa Rican telecom company that stopped the recording. So,
one breath. You do breath work.
I do. I've got great capacity.
And we got through about half. So what I'm going to do is make sure we don't go in the same order, switch it up, start at a different half. So actually a lot of this won't be rehearsed because I'm not doing that in the same order. Switching it up.
He's an honest man.
There we go. I don't know how to make this random, but I have them all on the screen. And we're going to... I can't see it.
Wow, that worked really well.
There we go. First question. How do you respect your boundaries in interactions with those who knew you before? So I know this person, and this person actually expanded on this when they asked the question, and they were talking about like people you grow up with and kind of grew out of relation to, but maybe still want to kind of relate to them or like, you know, still kind of touch base with them, but have boundaries. Like, no, I'm not going to go out to the bar or whatever. Like these kind of relational boundaries to people you were with before when you were a different version of yourself. Great question.
Great question. Super important because our environments continue to create the states in which we live or from which we live.
Yes.
This is an interesting one because one part of me goes, if they don't honor where you're at and your boundaries, see you later. That's where the like very direct, dedicated, devoted aspect of me goes is, well, you don't honor where I'm at. You're not worth my time, not worth my energy. See you later. So that's an option.
Yep.
Not a very easy one if you care about these people. Mm-hmm. What I like to share with people is that you have friends for different things.
Yes.
And this is a very important thing to remember on the path is that some of your friends are going to be spiritual friends. Some of your friends are going to be sports friends. Some of your friends are going to be art friends. Some of your friends are going to be friends you go out to dinner with. Some of your friends are going to be ones that your kids create relationships with. All these different things. And knowing what you are in a friendship with that person for is, in my opinion, the key. There's some people that you're going to have that you like with Ryan and I, we can pretty much do everything together, which is great. Takes a very long time to find those kinds of people, especially if you're new to this journey. But at the beginning, it was really important. I had my climbing friends. I had my gym friends. I had my yoga friends. I had my meditation friends. I had friends that I could talk about the world with. I had friends I could talk about business with. And I just really made that the focus of our connection. Mm-hmm. And that really helped me naturally create boundaries without being like, hey, I'm not doing this or I'm not doing this. The big one came up, though, is friends that I drank with when I decided to stop drinking. Those friendships naturally died because our relationship was based on something that didn't serve me anymore. And I think that's where it comes to more of the first part of what I said, as in if that boundary is actually getting in the way of your growth, your development, your happiness, your joy, you're probably going to have a tougher conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to hear your version of this because I'm more of like the cutthroat side of things, and I find you to be much more open and friendly and loving.
I'm a nicer person.
He's a nicer person, yeah.
Yep. So I agree
Thanks.
with everything you just said, especially at the end. It's no, I do agree with what you're saying, and I've had to do that with people that I've grown up with, and then it just didn't. You know, they want to hang out, but then the way that they would want to hang out is not how I would want to spend time. Yes. So I was like, okay, no, this just doesn't work for me right now. And then I would usually provide an opportunity of overlap. Like, and while I'm in town, when I'm visiting this town that I grew up in, I'm going to be going to the gym at this time if you want to join. I know we used to work out together, so if you want to join for that. Or I'm going to be going down to the lake and riding on the boat or doing whatever at this time, so if you want to join that. So I wouldn't usually just deny the person. I would say, not that doesn't work, but provide an invitation. And if they take it, great. Then we can see overlap. If they don't, great. It's clear. I provided that invitation. It's kind of the path that I've navigated it with. Only if that's true. I'm not going to go out of my way to create something for that person if it doesn't feel like there's natural overlap. When it comes to purely communicating with a person, I think this topic is interesting because you can, grow up and grow out of environments of like my high school buddies or friends that I grew up with, but then they'll reach out and they'll, you know, hey, I want some advice on this or some things on this. And if, like, I want to show up for that. So I'm like, hell yeah, like leave a voice note, let's hop on a call. And then nothing happens. And then they reach out a couple months later. Hey, I want like this thing. I know I didn't show up, but I wanted this. Sweet. After it happens once, twice, it's not something that I want to show up for. It's not something that I feel is valuable in that space. This happened a few times with friends. Like, see that I'm doing something like traveling. I'm like, cool. Here's the website, Coolworks. This is how I started traveling. This is a real example. And I'm like, great, take it. Let's go. A couple months later, oh, I didn't do it, but can you help? What about this? Help me with that. Continuing to provide stops serving them because it's kind of this, like, they're just getting a little dopamine hit by saying like, oh, I'm progressing by asking. It's like, I gave you the thing, and if you're going to act on it, amazing. I'll support you in that. I fucking celebrate you in that. But if you're not going to do anything about it, there's no reason for us to communicate.
Yeah.
So when it comes to spending time, it can look like what Cam said, like either like, no, doesn't work, or let's find a bridge to something that does work for us. And just purely communicating, notice if that's burning you out. Notice if you're feeling drained from communicating with people that are in old environments.
Yeah.
If you're doing it just to be nice, that. If there's actual overlap in interest and they're actually valuing your time, amazing. But if you notice yourself getting drained, like, oh, I need to show up for them because we were friends back in the day. Like, I need to. It's like, no, you don't. You don't owe them anything. Friendship is valuable. Honoring each other is valuable, but it has to be reciprocated or else it's not a real relationship.
100%. I love that.
100?
100.
I never get 98, 99.
Because you're a straight A student.
Yes.
I'd like to add.
Please add.
That we also have soul contracts with people. And those contracts have a lifespan. Thank you for that. That was really nice. And those contracts have a lifespan. And it's important to know that sometimes friendships, the best thing to do is to actually move on from them. And I think this is a really hard thing for a lot of people, especially when there's a lot of emotion in, you know, high school relationships, friends when you were children, all of those things. It can be really challenging. And at the same time, it's important to honor, cherish, and be grateful for those moments, for what they were, and to understand that people just part ways. People change. People go in different directions. And like you're saying, if you're feeling drained and you're feeling like it's not being reciprocated and it's not in alignment anymore, that's your soul speaking to you saying, this one's over.
Yeah.
You know, and if you try to keep rebuilding it, which you most likely will, and it keeps falling apart or things don't work, it's important to also be okay with letting that one go. Yeah,
you're naming a beautiful thing. And something that can happen here is avoidance. When like, oh, okay, like I'll just, no, okay, I don't need that. And avoid it. But if you don't first acknowledge it and you just avoid it, it's like the patterns that are in the background. You kind of have this feeling of like, oh, I didn't really cut the ties. I kind of just like left them. And that's different than what you're saying. You're saying to acknowledge what's happening, what has happened in the relationship, and naming that you're taking space, naming that this connection isn't working. And that's the challenging part. Avoiding and disconnecting from somebody is usually not that hard, especially friends. You can be like, okay, I'll just kind of push you to the side. That's usually pretty easy for humans because we can easily look at what's in front of us and not what was. But when it comes to acknowledging it and really actually confronting what's happening, I'm feeling drained in this relationship and I just want some space from this right now, so I won't be communicating with you for the next little bit. And so, or completely cutting it off, which is that something you've had to do?
Definitely.
How did you communicate that? Just to get some kind of word in here where it's like, this isn't working, or actually just acknowledging the connection.
Yeah, well, so I remember there was one point in my journey where a friend actually reached out to me after an Instagram story I posted, and he messaged me and he said, hey, I'm really worried about you. And I replied, why? And he replied, because I've seen people going down the path that you're going down and get lost in it and lose touch with reality and all of these things. And I remember at the time really feeling, okay, this person doesn't see me. Yeah. This person doesn't actually understand where I'm going, and I'm really bringing up something from their past or their experience that they're projecting onto me. And I remember saying to him, I said, hey, I love you. I appreciate you. We've shared some beautiful, amazing times together. doesn't sound like where I'm going aligns with where you're going, I'll invite you to either unfollow me. You don't have to watch my stories. And I really don't feel like you and I need to connect much anymore.
Yeah.
And if that changes, great. It's not like I'm closing a door. I'm just saying right now, things don't feel aligned. Things don't feel like they're vibing. And this was one of my closest friends when I was younger.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked ever since. And he did stop following me and all of that. And that's okay. Because for me, I knew that I was in a beautiful place. And I knew that I was really on my path. And for me, he was trying to pull me into his.
Yeah, or a past version of you. Exactly.
And he probably wanted the old Cam. And so that was kind of how I communicated it. It was hard. It was open heart, loving, but also, hey, it's just, we're not aligned. That's cool. So if we come back together, we do. And so be it.
Boom. Boom. All right. Got lots of questions to go through. So pick a random. Don't look. Look less. There we go.
I picked
the same one.
Whoa.
Crazy. Okay, answer it again.
Ooh, this is a good one. How do you train fun when it wasn't trained in you as a child?
Oh, yeah.
How do you discover what's fun?
Yes. Thank you for the question. Love this. Okay, so I know this human as well, and I know her experience growing up. Due to cultural experiences, there's actually a lot of seriousness and structure that was embedded into her at a young age. She actually didn't get invited into that. That's a literal thing that happened for her. And so growing up, it wasn't celebrated to have fun. And I think it's a fucking shame as a child to not have that celebrated. I know for me, at least on the male side of the family, it was not celebrated either. So I can relate to that, to a piece of that. Training fun, again, we've said this before, but it's incremental. It's these little moments. I think it can seem overwhelming to try to create a state that we haven't really felt. And again, the kind of fake it till you make it thing comes through where it's like, it's a huge thing and it's this big concept of fun and play and joy, but I don't feel it. So what do you mean? Like, it's so abstract. But this person in particular, I know, loves good music. And that's a beautiful invitation. Most people love music. Most people have some sort of connection to rhythm because that's our innate nature, is to connect to music, is to connect to rhythm. And it can look as simple as that. It can look as simple as putting on a song you like. I know this person, Katy Perry is your jam. I know. So you put on some fireworks, throw it on, jam out a little bit, and see what comes up. You might feel uncomfortable dancing to it, but continue to move into that space. Because it's this potentially abstract thing, and you see people doing it, or you see people like me doing it, where I'm like really expressive and really like loud in it, and like climbing trees naked and doing whatever. It's like, yeah, that's
a bit of a jump.
That's a jump. Don't do. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe, but also you don't need to do that. No. It's your version of fun, and you discover what's fun incrementally. You discover what's fun by noticing those moments of even recognizing this human has a child. What your child does to experience joy, because I know your child lives in joy. Most children are innately inside of joy. I truly believe innately we are all joyful beings. Whether we've tapped into that in this lifetime or not, that can be difficult to say. Whether we were allowed to or not, that's up to what happened in your parenting and your upbringing. But I truly believe, like innately, our spirit is light. Like we just have that ability to get there. It's just a matter of the path to get there. So you already know, witnessing in people that are joyful around you, witnessing in babies, little moments, and being okay looking weird as like, can you be okay in that weird, uncomfortable shit that comes up when joy occurs or when fun occurs? Or like, what if we did this in the challenge last week? What if I went and high-fived 5 strangers while I'm in the grocery store? That might not sound like fun to a lot of people. That might sound fucking terrifying, but doing that, you're going to notice what it starts to create in the body. And that is the pathway to fun. That is getting there. Being okay looking weird as shit. that is a beautiful path to having fun. And then, of course, the incremental steps of like music, little pieces of joy, little things that can happen incrementally, slowly. But I imagine you have stuff to add to that as well.
This is your world, man, and I love that you invite me into this so often, and I think I'm a pretty fun dude. I like to do a lot of fun stuff, and you remind me to do that even more, which is so beautiful, and I really value that in you and your presence. One way I love to have fun, and you just started touching on it, is finding those things that scare me. And moving through them. And, going up and high-fiving a bunch of people in Trader Joe's is a great example, because going into that, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, I'm going to look insane. This is where I shop all the time. What are people going to think? What if I see someone I know? And then you start doing it and you start seeing all the smiling. You start seeing all the excitement. You start seeing all the joy. And then you leave and you're like, oh my God, that was so much fun. But beforehand, you went, I don't know about this, and I think that's a really, really key component, is when you go, I don't know about this, but there's still something pulling you in. It's to take that leap. It's to take that jump. It's to go to the amusement park. It's to go skydiving, to go bungee jumping, to go on that roller coaster that scares you, to start putting yourself in these circumstances that have resistance at the beginning, but are incremental enough that you can start to find momentum in them, because in that momentum, you'll start to really enjoy yourself. Because for me, fun is a lot of it's about learning. I use surfing as an example. Before moving to Costa Rica, I wasn't a surfer. And then I went into it and I would look out at the ocean and I go, I don't know about this, and you just get pummeled and you get annihilated. But as long as you're laughing and learning and celebrating every small incremental win, you have fun. And I had days where I'd paddle out, wouldn't catch one wave, would look like a total mess, almost drown. And I had some of the best days of my life because I was challenging myself and I was seeing that through. And so I think that's a really important place, is go into those challenges, move through that resistance, and celebrate the incremental wins when you start to realize momentum.
Yes. Oof. I love what you're saying about learning, because it's often that people hear like play and fun and they're like, oh, it has to be super exciting. It's like, it can be, and it can be purely curiosity. It can be purely just interested in what's happening. I say this about shadow work. I say this about dark stuff and stuff that's coming up in breath work. It's like, yeah, play with it. That doesn't mean to like, oh, whatever, it's all light and love. It's like, no, that means being curious about what's occurring, what's unfolding, what's happening here. I'm not sure, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to go into it. That can be play. That can be that pathway to fun. Curiosity. It killed the cat, but it also, it's going to be fun.
Transform the human. Killed the cat, transform the human.
Shit. Cool. Next one. Look away. How do you incorporate forgiveness in your life, within yourself and others? Forgiveness. Thank you for the great question.
That's a juicy one. And really what comes up here is empathy. Ryan's talked about this before, and I think actually we got this question in the last time we went through this, and you had talked about empathy versus sympathy. Empathy is really understanding somebody's emotions. True forgiveness comes when you understand that either yourself or another person didn't actually mean to do what they did. It was the pain or the circumstance or the challenges they faced that created the individual that lives from the pattern that ultimately affected you. So if you are an individual who holds trauma, and that trauma leads to you leaning into self-harm, self-deprecation, any of these things, it's not you making the conscious decision to do that. It's your pain creating a pattern that you've become addicted to. And so just like you wouldn't look at a heroin junkie and saying, hey, you idiot, get off heroin, you go, oh, wait, I'm addicted to this. This is something that I really have to treat with a lot of love and a lot of seriousness to stop and to change. And it's the same for other people. Growing up, I had a lot of people harm me. I harmed a lot of people. A lot of bad things were done to me. I don't hold any resentment or any anger towards any of those people because I understand that everybody acts from their pain. Everybody acts from their trauma. Everybody acts from their challenges. And if I was in the same circumstance as that individual, I'd be doing the exact same thing because I'd have the same parents. I would have had the same household situation. I'd be in the same environment, same friends, same everything. So I would be the same person. And the more empathetic I can be to that person's circumstance and know that their awful things or my awful things aren't actually my truth or their truth, that's where you dissolve all resentment, all anger, because you know it has nothing to do with them as a soul or as a person.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you bring up empathy. I do want to speak to that again.
Please.
We talked about it last time, but because you're hearing this, you're probably like, oh, empathy means I'm also feeling what they're feeling. And that's not true. Empathy and sympathy are very different. Empathy is understanding the emotion, as Cam mentioned. It's being able to be aware of that emotion, whether it is because you were there at one point or because you have an awareness of what that emotion is. You're able to see that emotion. Sympathy is feeling that emotion with them. So empathy is knowing the emotion, having compassion for it, understanding it, but you're not inside of it. Sympathy is when you're in that with them, which usually creates a spiral with the emotion and amplifies it, which actually usually doesn't heal or serve the circumstance. So a lot of people will say I'm empathetic, and that means I'm feeling everybody's emotion, but that's not true. You're being sympathetic and taking on other people's emotions and letting it dictate your behavior. Big difference there. So when you're saying empathy, I love it because it's the true definition of it. You're aware of it. You're like, oh my God, I have empathy because I know that in myself. Or I can see where that pain comes from. But I'm not like, I also, because you're mad at me, I'm mad at you and we're mad. Yeah, like I'm empathetic, I'm taking on your shit. It's like, no, that's sympathy. You're taking on his shit. Mm-hmm. And I love that. And how I would say in a different way of looking at it as well is acceptance. Mm-hmm. That one word comes to mind. And it's similar, but it's like empathy even to me takes more energy than acceptance. Mm-hmm. And it can be hard for people that are, constantly it's coming up and we're like, how do I forgive this person? Purely being in acceptance of what is and what's happening can also be a beautiful thing. And again, it's not to disassociate. It's not to like, yeah, fucking whatever, they're doing them. It's accepting. And it's like, okay, accept. And then love can come through. But can we accept them where they're at? It's similar with a different flair, like a different flavor. Because I think about the people that I've been mad at in my life, and it's like, that does so much more damage to me than it does to them. Like, definitely. It's just, I'm holding that. I'm holding that anger. I'm holding that sadness. And like, I'm just mad, but they don't even know it, and I'm just in it. Mm-hmm. That's only hurting me. So if I can accept them, oh my God, how beautiful, how liberating is that?
I love that so much. And it reminds me of a quote that Mary Magdalene said. Oof. She said, how heavy is the burden of carrying that hate in your heart? Mm. How heavy is the burden of carrying that hate in your heart? And that speaks exactly to what you're saying here, where the more we hold on to anger for people and resentment and all of these different things, we just perpetuate the trauma. We perpetuate the pain. We continue to harm ourselves. And the moment we can accept, which in trauma is very hard, especially like sexual trauma, sexual abuse, these types of things, like that's really, really hard to do. And when you get to a place where you can accept that, beautiful things happen. Mm-hmm. Marianne Williamson in her book, Return to Love, talks about how she used to have AIDS patients write letters to their disease, write letters to AIDS to understand that AIDS wasn't a thing that was out to get them. It was a thing that was just doing what it knew how to do. And it was just a virus that was programmed to do this. And it wasn't an angry thing. It wasn't something that was like, I'm going to get you. Its consciousness is only doing what it knows how to do. And this acceptance and this compassion and this empathy towards these types of things would heal these individuals, not necessarily physically, because AIDS is, you know, we manage it a lot better now, but it's still, you know, I don't know if it's actually a terminal illness anymore. It might not be. But at the time when she was doing this, it most definitely was. But it would heal these people to a place where they would get to a place of acceptance where they would accept their death and be okay with their death around this illness, because they learned to accept that no one was really angry or out to get them. It was just the nature of life and the nature of their experience. So I love that you brought up that acceptance, because that's so beautiful and so powerful.
Yes. Forgiveness. All right. Your turn, sir. Lovely.
That's Ryan sliding the phone across the table. Whoever's listening.
Just throwing it around.
How do you stay so positive? That's a good question.
Shout out, you know who you are.
How do you stay so positive? I got a couple ideas on this, but I was just talking, so I'd be interested to hear your perspective on this, because your shirt literally says radiate positivity. So I think that it's fitting for you to reply to this.
It is fitting, even though it's a large shirt.
You wear a shirt like that. That's it. Next question.
Okay.
No.
Just wear it.
Just wear it.
Wear positivity. I feel the most honest answer is because I know what the opposite looks like really well. I've felt positivity growing up many a times, of course, and I've also felt the opposite. I felt completely desperate, completely angry, completely sad, just in a spiral where I couldn't actually, you know, come to a place of noticing positivity or feeling that. And I think we've all been to places like that. But when I can often look at that and remember that, and also love that and not avoid it, positivity becomes more of a mindset than a feeling. So for me, it's almost like a perspective shift. It's like positivity can be perspective. Positivity is not always, yay, everything's f***ing grand. Like positivity can be like, oh, this f***ing sucks, and I know this is temporary. That can be positivity. Positivity is a perspective, and it can be that, oh, I'm inside of this thing now. It's super, but I know this too shall pass. It can be a super high. I'm on a wave with buddies. This is great. It can be moment to moment different experiences coming through, but I feel it's a way of looking at the world more than anything. Like when I really boil it down, I've been in so many different states, so many different depths that I'm like, wow, this world is so infinitely dense and so infinitely light. Everything is happening simultaneously, and it's all this cosmic joke. We were just talking about this before this. It's like, yeah, we don't even know what the is going on, so why not choose to have a positive perspective? Because I have no idea what's going on here. I just know what I've been told. Why don't I look at it in a way that's in a positive light? Why not? And then moving from that space. And I would say 95% of the time or more, I'm actually in that place. And it's not that I'm happy and like super high energy. I'm just in a place of looking at the world around me in a positive perspective. Yeah, so that's the first thing that comes up right away.
Yeah, I was going right to the cosmic joke.
There you go.
And I love that, because we were just talking about it where it's none of us know what's going on, so why not choose to see it as this ridiculous situation? and then I also went to a choice. Every day you're given a choice. You wake up. How are you going to choose to see the day? How are you going to choose to see your current situation? Are you going to choose to feel about it, or are you going to choose to start to feel better about it? And I know me saying that's going to trigger some people, especially those with depression and anxiety. I know I've had depression and anxiety my whole life, and it can be really hard to wake up day after day after day in a depressed or an anxious state and be like, oh, I'm just going to choose positivity. Like, that's the most annoying thing you can hear, because you're so overwhelmed with the anxiety and the depression that you can't use the mind to shift the state that the body's in. And for those people, what I would say, it's a bit of a different strategy.
Yeah.
You got to clear house. You got to actually go into the depths of darkness. You got to go into your pain. You got to go into the challenges, and you got to do the work to let that anxiety teach you what it needs to teach you, or let that depression teach you what it needs to teach you, so that you can create space. Because if you think about it right now, let's say you got 10 units of, potential expression, and those 10 units are full of depression and anxiety. Positivity is an expression. And so you can't fit that positivity into those 10 units. You're at capacity. But if you do breath work and you do trauma work and you do a bunch of personal healing, you're going to free up units of space within yourself. And with every release, every cry, every scream, every reflection, every little bit of doing the deep work, you're going to be able to get another slot that you can start to add positivity to. So you might wake up one day a week and be able to have the choice, as opposed to not at all. Yeah. And that's a huge win. Celebrate that. But if you go, only positive once last week, you're going to once again fill that slot with that depression, that anxiety. So it's clearing space. And then really, once you get a slot of clarity, you start to really feed that slot of clarity, feed that positivity, celebrate that positivity, work with that. Even if it's just for a moment in a day, a tiny sliver where you were like, oh, the sun's so nice. Then you go, yeah, but life sucks. And then it's like, okay, but then go back to that feeling of like, oh, it's so beautiful. And try to keep tethering yourself back to that. And I think that's a really important thing. You got to create space.
Yeah, I love that. It's like training a new behavior.
Exactly.
It's like if it's not there, just like the fun question, if positivity is not there for you, what we were talking about with fun, insert positivity. Mm-hmm. Train the behavior with things that are uncomfortable, because it's a new place. It's going to be hard. Mm-hmm. It's going to be challenging, but that means there's going to be greater reward in that. Mm-hmm. So if it doesn't come naturally, I love all the examples you gave. Like, do the work. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to show up in it. It's not just going to like randomly appear. Like, you have to show up and lean into that if it's not naturally there.
Yes.
So, yeah, I love it. Love it. Thank you. How do you stay in your power with so many influences in the world? Stay in your power, she asks. Love this. Mm-hmm. Great question. Staying in your power. I'll kick this off. Let me see what comes up. Right away, it's about, and this seems repetitive, but training state through, for me, the biggest things. That's why I had a brand for a while that was called Ryan's Routines, is because if we can start our day with a routine of focusing on ourselves, on our state, on our breath, on our practice, end our day with that same experience, then I believe within those time slots, we have given ourselves an ability to actually not be influenced by the world around us as much. And over time, it creates more and more space for that. More and more power comes through about yourself and owning that. But having those routines, that's the first thing that pops up. Like having a morning routine, having an evening routine, prioritizing that, whether it's 5 minutes or 2 hours. Prioritizing those routines starts having realizations. You start actually realizing, oh, I cultivate what's happening in me. Mm-hmm. I'm not waking up and being like, blah, 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 what's going on my phone? There's emails, blah, blah, blah. Of course you're going to feel like you don't have power if you're being instantly reactive. But if you start cultivating responsiveness, you start cultivating your state, and you're like, oh, I feel good going in this day. Or at least I feel connected to what's going on. I'm in anxiousness and I'm aware of that. At least if it's that. I have awareness right now. Cool. I'm going into this day. And if you can do that, and if you can even take it a step farther, Cam's talked about this before, I don't get off the cushion until I feel like the person I want to be today. If you can do that, you've got it. Mm-hmm. You've got your power for the day. And if you lose it in the day, you can reference that place or reflect on it in the evening. Mm-hmm. It's just giving space for reflection and cultivation of state. Mm-hmm. It's a big one.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing that came to me when you were explaining this outside of the original thing I wanted to share was paying attention to your power poses. How you carry yourself is a big one. And I think, what's her name? Amy Cuddy, I think is her name. She did a TED Talk on power poses. I think it's Amy Cuddy. It's something along those lines. I might be getting her confused with Kid Cudi, but very deep as well, and really good TED Talk. I think she did one of the most like watched TED Talks in the world on this topic was power poses.
Yeah.
And it's about how you carry yourself, how you hold yourself, how you express yourself. She talks about every morning starting the day with your hands up in the air. Yeah. Because as humans, we didn't learn that that's what we do when we celebrate. It's an innate program within us to be like, yeah, I won. I crushed this. Mm-hmm. So it's using the body as well to start creating these states. And a lot of times when people have challenges with power, you'll look at their body language, right? And they'll be a lot more, curled up, a lot more reserved, a lot more timid. So looking at how you carry yourself and how you actually embody that power, I think is really important. And that's something that, as you just expressed about, the routines and then getting off the cushion, it kind of came through to share.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. Because body language, I think, speaks volumes. Mm-hmm. It's actually louder than anything else that we do with ourselves.
For sure.
Because it's the first thing we see in somebody. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that usually carries the most impact and the most memorable is how did they carry themselves? Yeah. What were they embodying?
Yeah.
How were they walking? In that first moment, we make that first impression. Yeah. It's how are they moving through a room? How are they moving through a space? Mm-hmm. And that creates the perception of power, even if it's not felt.
Totally.
It's like, oh yeah, that person must be powerful. Look how they're walking. Mm-hmm. Like, and if your body believes that and you embody that power and you connect to that, it's true.
Yeah. And it actually creates chemical reactions as well. That's the really cool part is it actually creates chemical reactions inside of you to carry yourself in a certain way. So I'll add the link to the show notes for that TED Talk so you can check it out. But really impactful, really powerful TED Talk. And she talks about just how she moved through feeling very, very kind of timid and afraid and how she then got to a place where she now has one of the most watched TED Talks in the world.
Well, I did the same with my posture. I wonder if you did that. Did you have posture as a tall person at some point? Like, did that occur? You just been perfect posture?
Yeah, I've just been just had perfect posture. No, honestly, it came from the hoodlum world. If I didn't puff my chest up and walk dominant into a room and be dominant,
you're weak.
Then so funnily enough, the being a little head actually helped me with this because I was able to be the alpha. It was confidence, exactly. And so now I definitely changed the energy. I'm not coming into a room being like all y'all, I'm here to show up. But it's that
you can tap into that pretty easily.
Yeah, I can tap into that because of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely I remember when I grew in high school, like I had to slouched over because I was kind of shrinking myself to people around me because I was like, oh, I don't want to be too much. Like,
for sure.
I gotta, and then fixing that was huge though. That was on the journey, and that really does do so much to yourself, to the emotion, to what's happening in your body. If you can shift how you're carrying yourself,
it's a game changer.
The impact changes. How you communicate changes. If you can expand your lungs, your breath capacity changes.
Exactly. Like, heart opens.
Everything opens. Literally, the organs can expand. Yeah. On a literal level, your body can breathe better. You can produce more oxygen. You start bringing in more into your body. Yes. So of course, you can be more powerful.
For sure.
Literally.
And I'll add, we don't have to go deep into this one, but another one is your boundaries and your principles. Really understanding and setting boundaries around generating your energy. And we've talked about this on another podcast, basically the whole podcast on, how to own your yeses and your no's was all about this. It's really setting the boundaries to protect your state. Yeah. And that also is very important and just really making sure you're strict with that. Mm-hmm. And the more strict you are with that, the more you say no when you mean to say no, and the more you say yes when you mean to say yes, you're going to naturally start feeling a lot more powerful and a lot more aligned to your higher self.
Yes. You're not giving your power away.
Exactly.
All right. I'll slide it quietly. Next question goes to... We're not going to say the name.
Not sure if you ever spoke about it, but yours and Cam's journey of building your biz.
Oh, biz journey.
Biz journey. Well, this one is a constant evolution. It's definitely an evolution, and it's kind of related to Ryan and I have talked about how our friendship grew, and I had been coaching for a while, and Ryan and I had connected in Bali, and I was merging the worlds of spirituality and fitness together, because that was a big passion of mine. And Ryan was following the journey and also very much so doing similar things with his coaching business, and had reached out when I was running this program and started saying, hey, I really feel like you've got some cool stuff here and I've got some value that I could bring to this whole situation. And are you open to having people come in and you know, build this with you? And I was like, hey, yeah, for sure. Come in, do the program. And Ryan came in, did the program and just totally crushed it, and was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to bring forth. And it's just been this really cool evolution of, okay, maybe we're not so focused on the fitness side of things now. Maybe it's more the emotional transformation. And as we have expanded as individuals and coaches and space holders, it's now become, you know, what Embodied is now. And it's cool. We've been working with a branding company recently on really coming up with the image and the personality of the organization. And we're going to have a whole new brand launching in the new year, which we're super excited about. And it's been this cool point, I guess, for us to reflect on, you know, what this thing is that now is coming together as a co-creation, and now attracting other people like Samenda and Kyla and, you know, Remy and Gordon and all these people who are starting to, you know, be in their own world, still doing their respective stuff, but coming in and adding their own little flavors here and there. So it's kind of been this evolution of collaboration and alignment. And we're still in it. Like, it's this whole podcast, all of this stuff is just an extension of kind of where that journey's been taking us.
Yeah, it's amazing how it's really been an evolution of our excitement.
Yeah.
That's a cool way of putting it. That's what I feel when you're talking. It's like, what excites you? What excites me? Let's bring that forward.
Yes.
Because where excitement meets expertise is like where the areas we're playing in. So it's like, okay, I've been trained in this. You've been trained in that. This innately comes to me. This innately comes to you. This is what excites us. So this is what we can build community around.
Yes.
And it brings people together and it ignites other people's souls. Okay, where's all that overlap? And that's where the business lives.
Definitely.
That's where the tools we bring forward, the challenges we run, the retreats we hold, the app we're building, the journal that's coming out. It's like all these tools come from, what do we want? What would we want?
Yeah.
And what would we have wanted a few years ago that wasn't available?
Yeah.
We need to bring that forward.
Yeah.
That's our medicine.
Yeah.
And so, I love what you're saying, because it is really an overlap of like what we already love and how we're evolving and expanding, and what we would have wanted 2, 5, 10 years ago on our journey, and bringing people into that and really building community, like building true community in these spaces.
Yeah.
Like that, for me, feels like one of the most important pieces.
For
like
sure.
Tools of building community around healing. Yeah. Around modern day healing. Like true,
contemporary
real, raw
healing. Yeah. I love that so much. And you hit the nail on the head. And there's a way that I love to look at this, and it's chase the frequency. Yeah. Always follow the frequency. It's so easy these days to chase the next fad, the next strategy, the next trend, the next thing that's proving to make people millions or whatever that might be. And yes, that works for some people. And it's never going to be a match for your excitement. Like Ryan's saying, it's never going to be a match for that thing that lights you the up. And if you constantly follow what lights you up, you can't go wrong. You literally cannot. And you're going to attract people that are on the same frequency. You're going to attract customers that are on the same frequency. You're going to attract community that's on the same frequency. You're going to attract collaborators that are on the same frequency. And then it becomes this beautiful collective consciousness, this beautiful, bubble of energy around a mission that just becomes this amazing focal point for everybody, which has been really cool. Like I said, to now start putting into a brand, because we're like, whoa, this has become its own entity. Like, Ignite is a part of Embodied, which is the umbrella company, which is becoming this entity. And so that's coming from people's excitement, people's magic, and following the frequency of creating something super cool that's never been done before.
Doesn't it sound like we're signing off when I do that?
It does. It's not over.
But truly, it's staying lit. That's what we're saying. And when we say that, I could see how that could be taken as like, wow, you're always doing so much, or it means you're always like high energy. Staying lit shouldn't create burnout. No. Funnily enough.
Of course
because
not.
it's flame. It shouldn't. Staying lit should be following that frequency, following your highest alignment. That might mean resting. That might mean a lot of different things, but it's not just the like high achievement model like Cam's talking about and chasing the dollar. It's like, what's really calling you right now? What really, if you could do anything right now, what would that be? And starting to bring that flair and flavor into your life. That's what we mean when we say stay lit. Say it.
Say it.
Stay stoked for life. Like, stay connected to that.
Yes.
So much juiciness here. Okay.
All the juice. Love that question.
All right. Maybe we have 2 more.
Yep.
Ayo.
Well, I think that's great. Someone wrote "staying lit."
That's amazing.
As
Literally,
a question.
It just says
that's so
lit.
good. And I'll take this opportunity just to kind of feed off of Ryan's fire on that a little bit.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
You fed on my fire.
I fed off your fire. I'm staying lit. Don't do that. It burns.
Stay lit.
Everybody has a fire inside of them. Everybody has this ember inside of them. And I love how Ram Dass talks about this in some of his meditations. He says that there's an ember deep inside of you, deep inside of you. And a lot of us have gotten disconnected from this ember. We've gotten disconnected from this fire inside. And that fire is our soul. That fire is this limitless source of energy that will guide you through anything. And staying lit is staying connected to that fire, nurturing that fire, blowing on that fire, building that fire, and taking care of that fire. There's yogis in India there are. There's a few. Yeah. There's yogis in India who maintain fires for hundreds of years. Literal fires. So they sit next to these fires in meditation and keep them burning. I can't quote the amount of years, but I think one's been going for a couple hundred years, where there's a fire that's just continuously been burning. And these men will stay in meditation and they'll keep feeding the fire, because this fire represents something bigger than their physical bodies. This fire represents something very, very powerful. They have to be calm. They have to be centered. They have to stay with that fire. They have to just continuously nurture it, feed it, be with it. And so this podcast, our retreats, all of these things are about giving you opportunities to feed that fire, to nurture that fire, to continuously blow on that ember inside of you so that you can start to connect more with your purpose, connect more with your life, and really ignite this side of you that will result in a juicy life, no matter what that looks like, because it's connected to your soul. It's connected to your purpose. So staying lit is about feeding that fire, staying with that fire, nurturing that fire.
Love that. It always comes back to your truth. When we say stay lit, when we say, find that fire, that is your truth. It's basically burning off the bullshit that you've been sticking with, that these stories have been happening in your life that you've been taking on, and these things you've been adapting from people that actually don't serve you. Burn off the bullshit. Stay lit, because that's your truth. I love how you put that. That's what we mean when we say stay lit.
That's it. Now you know. Great question.
Last one.
Bang.
There we go.
How do you guys deal with difficult conversations?
Oh.
Okay. Well, we'll go to that one after.
That's amazing. We'll actually end with that one.
The question is, how do you guys deal with difficult conversations? And I would say that for us, not really anymore, but right before we filmed this podcast, we had a difficult conversation, and we've gotten pretty good at this topic. And I think it's very, very beautiful that this came up, because we were just in a very loving and a very potentially confronting conversation. And I think that's, to me, that's really it. It's staying in your heart is one, understanding that the person you're talking to, you care about, is a soul, is a human, is somebody that you love. And then the second part for me is making sure that you've taken the time to understand what it is you're going to share and what it is you're going to articulate, so that you can take this topic or this object or whatever it is and put it on the table in front of you, so that you can discuss this thing outside of yourselves as being, hey, I've been journaling, I've been meditating, I've taken the time to understand this feeling that I've had. And this is the story, this is the idea, this is my perspective of what's taking place. How does it resonate with you, and what's your perspective, what's your story, and how can we understand each other's worlds better so that this actually isn't a thing and it dissolves it in that moment.
I love that. I love what you're doing there, because it's similar to like NVC, like nonviolent communication training, which is beautiful. Marshall Rosenberg has a great thing on YouTube. It's about 2 hours long. Good little training on this if you feel like you're lacking in this area. That's beautiful, because you're naming what objectivity you can. Because when it comes to something that is difficult or that is controversial, it can be challenging or impossible to find objectivity. So to say, if you would have came at me, because you started this conversation with, you did this, you are that, that's saying what I am or what I did is objectively true, which most likely, or probably not, for me, it is not the same experience. So how can I even defend myself? I have to defend myself.
Yeah, there's no other option.
I can't be like, oh, and really come with love. I could, but I would have to try really hard. But you just attacked me. How can I come back with love? But what Cam's saying is to name his objectivity, which is innately subjective, because you're like, this is my experience. It's true because it's my experience. It's actually real because I just felt this. My feeling is true. Your action might have felt different for you. What I felt was this when this happened. That is truth.
Totally.
I'm like, I can't be like, no, you didn't feel that. Like, that's true because it is. So then, of course, I can come with compassion, and this is what happened. I was like, oh, wow. When that happened, this is how I felt. That's that you felt that way. Oh, like, let's talk about that. I wonder, what that came from in my action, or like, why was that the case? And we were able to dive into it because you started it with love. You started it with curiosity instead of just coming at me with who I am or what I did as an objective statement, which a lot of us do when it comes to difficult conversations. We're like, you always do this, and when you do this, it's you every time and it's like,
there's no other place for that person to go.
Have you been holding on to that for a long time, and you've just been holding on to my behavior, and you never told me? So like that also feels attacking. But when we say what some person did is bad or wrong, instantly we want, that's going to cause difficulties. So when you can come with compassion, like you're talking about, which is what you did, you're like, I felt this, I took space, I looked into it, it might be a story, but I wanted to come through to you with this. And I love how you invited in this conversation. You messaged me right after the moment, because this was a few nights ago, and we went and had dinner with some friends, and the energy just fell off in that space. There was nothing actually, like, we'll share about this. There's nothing that was actually directly confronting at that space. It was just like, oh, dude, energy fell off a little bit. Did you feel that too? That was your message to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, I kind of did. And I thought it was X, and I inserted what I thought. I was like, I thought it was this, but I'm not sure. And you're like, cool, we should talk about it. We should have a conversation. And I love that, because you didn't, again, say, this is what happened. Why are you such a shitty friend or whatever? You're just like, hey, man, this fell off. Do you think so also?
Yeah.
Curiosity. Yeah. Leading with curiosity rather than leading with assumption. You're like, hey, what do you think here? Because more likely than not, we'll notice that the other person is probably also unsure. But if we assume, the other person's going to probably have to assume to hold their space.
Yeah.
So you're leading with curiosity, which got me curious.
Yeah.
And then we led to this conversation, which we had today, which is beautiful. And like, it feels so fucking clear now, because we also got to places where like, oh, I see what you want. I see your needs. I see your wants, your desires. You see mine. Okay. Actually, we can meet each other here. And this is beautiful.
It dissolves the difficulty because it becomes, it's like this mutual approach to solving a problem that isn't attached to ego. When you project onto somebody, or you attack somebody, or you say you do this or you do that, that's going to fire the person's ego up right away. And like Ryan's saying, if that person isn't very aware of this and that person doesn't have the capacity to be like, oh, that's my ego, maybe I'm going to meet this person in love, they're in an experience, then it's just going to go sideways, you know? And so I think that's a really important part to address. And give yourself space. Yeah. Never enter a difficult conversation when you're in the emotional activation. You do not ever want to do that. You need to take space. And I learned this through anger management, because I used to have somebody say one thing to me. The next thing I would remember is I'd be standing over them bloody. Yeah. I had no ability to process any of it. It was like, you said X, boom, I'm attacking you. That was how bad my anger was. And so I had to get to a place where I'd be like, I'd like catch myself right before, and then I'd like have to walk away, or at first I would turn and I would attack an inanimate object. Like at first it would be like the person would be there and I'd be like, redirect, and I would break my hands on a tree. Like I would just go wild because that energy still didn't know how to control that. And over the course of the time, I just got better at kind of catching myself in that. So much so now that if, at dinner, I message you because I'm curious, because I'm feeling something. And then I didn't go, hey, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I think, blah, blah, blah. It was, let's have a conversation about this. And we gave it a couple days. And over those couple days, I journaled on it. I investigated it. I asked myself questions about it. I gave myself the space to really understand it. And this is the same concept of never sending an email when you're angry. Because if you send an email when you're angry, you're going to say shit that you don't want to say. If you take 2 days before pressing send, I guarantee you're not going to send that same email because you're not in the emotional activation. So it's really important to give yourself that space so you can reflect. You can let the shit simmer, and then you can come at it from a place of love, because you're not in that like pent up animal in a cage. Like, you did this thing to me. You let it settle. You let it chill.
Yeah. And also, other scenarios that can happen is like something that's been happening for years and it's not really emotionally charged, but then when you go to talk to that person, you're like, okay, I'm going to go talk to him. I got to bring this up. It's been long enough. Family member, friend, whatever. Okay. And you go and talk to them. And energy goes through the roof. He's like, and just the trigger comes through. Yeah. And so Cam's saying beautiful ways to start moving the energy. Probably don't punch a tree.
Or don't attack them. That's
do that.
Highly
old pattern.
Not recommended.
As much as you can, lead with curiosity. As much as you can. If you can really lean into asking questions and seeking insight from them before making assumption, that's going to really calm the nervous system.
Definitely.
Because it's coming from that place of just like, I don't know. I'm assuming and you can even name assumptions if you like. This is a beautiful practice. Is if you feel good with this person, you'd be like, hey, I have lots of assumptions about you, and this has to be a pretty safe space. I'm going to name out these assumptions right now if you're okay with that. Yeah. These are all assumptions I have. Yeah. And then you can name them. If you really feel it boiling up and you're like, okay, I noticed this. Let me ground. I have these assumptions about you. Do you feel okay with me naming these out? And it's like, I assume this. I assume this. And if you start noticing the rise in energy, pause, bring it back down. Yeah. This can be beautiful because you can realize, you're like, wow, I assume all of this and I know that's not true. Yeah. And then they can absorb it and be like, ideally, you're in a safe space with them and like, wow, okay, I hear you. There's a lot of assumption here. And this is what it is for me. This is my reality. That can be beautiful practice. Again, it has to be reciprocated and with a good person that's with you. But that's a great one because it's super confronting. Yeah. And you can also write that out. But leading with curiosity is a beautiful way to do it always. That's going to serve, because you can start with asking questions rather than saying what they are or who they are. And we should drop actually in the show notes as well that nonviolent communication MVC video.
Definitely.
It's just like a 2-hour video on YouTube, and it's such a good training in this. I've done it a few times, send it to friends actually that I've had communication problems with. Like, hey, we should both do this. Yeah. Wink, wink. We're not good at communicating, so let's try this. And we did it, and it's been beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah. Powerful. And on the topic of assumptions, and we'll end right after this, unless something else comes through for you. No, we got one more question we got to talk about, just because it's a funny one. But it's if you can't stand in front of somebody and do that, because that's a big thing. Intense. What I did actually for our experience is I wrote down all the things that were going through my head about the situation. So I got clear with like all the different aspects of it. I was like, this and this and this and this. And then I went okay, those are all negative.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Get the negative out of the way. And then I went, okay, what's the positive side of this? Like, what do I love about Ryan? You know, so I wrote down, okay, what's bothering me about this situation? And then I wrote, what do I love about him? And so I wrote down all the things in my mind was like,
so many more things
right?
you love, like so many.
Yeah, like at least like one more thing that I loved about you. But it was, you know, the mind's going, and sometimes it just needs to just go blah, 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 and just like clear a ton of stuff out. And then when I finished it with the things that I love about you, then I was like, oh, I love this guy. I was like, all this other stuff's bullshit. We'll figure it out. Yeah. This is like my brother. And so it shifted the dynamic, and it let me get all the shit out on paper, which gave me clarity on what to talk about. And then when I started writing, you know, the things I'm grateful for about you, it dropped me into my heart. Said, okay, here I am. Now I'm in my heart. I know this is the truth. These are just things that we need to talk about and I need to express. Let's bring those up. Let's bring those to the surface. And that's really, you know, for me, been a beautiful practice for
great tool
for having challenging conversations with people.
Yeah. Oh, that's that works with anything that causes anxiousness or excessive emotion. Yeah. You get to just write it out, move it, and then you can redirect it. You can reframe it. You can bring up positivity in that. Yeah. Train positivity with that.
Hey, but radiate positivity with that. Radiate it.
Love that, dude. All right, for the final question, I swiped over on accident whenever Cam did that. I guess nothing's an accident. And this question actually comes up from somebody who was in the dynamic.
Yes.
Of when this altercation.
We fought.
We left that part out. We fought.
We got in a fist.
This side of our faces are bloody.
Did not sound like.
What do you think I said?
Never mind. But that's what it sounded like.
We didn't do that.
We didn't. There was no hate sex involved in this.
Wow.
Jeez.
Anyways. Last one. We're tying it up.
Last question. Drum roll, please. Who's your good girl? I would say who's your bad girl.
I know.
But she's got the dark and the light.
But she's the same girl.
It is the same girl.
Yeah. She's also a woman. She's a goddess and a queen.
And you know who you are.
You know. And if you follow me, you probably know who she is too.
You probably know.
Because she put it in. So we're not going to say it.
But you know it.
But you know who you are.
We talk about so many serious, beautiful things, and then we drop into...
Who's your good girl?
Who's your good girl?
My little queen. Love you.
Beautiful.
Great.
All right, everybody. We'll have another Q&A episode, so keep them coming. We've actually got a ton more questions to address here. Thank you for bringing these to our attention. We love you. This community is awesome. Stay lit.